All right, ladies and gentlemen, you guys have long awaited for today, and it has finally arrived as your one and only host of the hit show, The Snake Sports Talk Show. Jake the Snake Silva here on a beautiful yet sun-rising Sunday. We're live on all platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and of course, we're also live on Fox D Network and iHeartRadio. So wherever and however you may be listening and watching as well, we are live on all of those platforms. Yes, I've got a lot to really get up off my chest, but thank God on a Sunday, we can do that all today. We have a very special guest, Nikki Gist from the 3rd and 3 podcast is joining us here on the show, talking a lot about the New York Giants. So I can't wait for that, but boy, did we have an exciting start to the World Series already. Series is tied between the Phillies and the Houston Astros. I cannot wait to talk more about that. Later on the bottom half of the hour, Jake's prime predictions as well. Week 8, we finally made it to that point. And yes, there are a lot of questions that I know all of you have, and I will save that for later as well. Because it's going to be one of those subjects. It's going to be a long day, but we'll get started with this. So, evaluating a lot about the New York Giants, as of course our special guest will be joining up here in a moment. We all did not really predict this with the New York Giants. We really didn't. I knew Brian Daboll was going to be one of those coaches. He's very moving. He's also somebody that's very motivating and really knows how to work an offense. I mean, he's been around the league long enough, and he's been around different staffs, including the buildup of Josh Allen up in Buffalo. But this has been the heartbeat that New York fans have been looking for. Listen, I visited New York 6 times in my lifetime, and I love visiting there. I walked all around, all of New York. I've been to every part of Long Island from one side to the other, and it's beautiful. But I do love the atmosphere. You walk around Central Park, you walk around, Manhattan and Times Square, and you walk around a lot of different beautiful scenic places. All right. And New York has always been known of their flashing lights. There's always different things to do there, and they know how to build an entertainment. I mean, outside of Los Angeles, and then here we are in my hometown of Las Vegas. We're becoming that type of town where it's the entertainment place. And so we love this kind of stuff. But in New York, in the last few years, things have not really turned out the way that they have until this year. And this was exactly the best thing that New York fans have long awaited for. I know a lot around the entire sports world of New York, like, first of all, the Yankees and the Mets. They had the best records in baseball. I understand in the postseason, they both got knocked out. But listen, at least the Yankees and the Mets, you have something to look forward to. The Rangers last year were in the Eastern Conference Final. And then not too long ago, the Islanders, they were making a name for themselves in the Eastern Conference. So there are several things that have happened in the hockey realm that have been really good. The Knicks, honestly, they made it into the playoffs one year, and they're still working things out. But as far as I can see it right now, I look at the Jets. I don't know really if Zach Wilson is truthfully the quarterback, but you look at the games that they've been playing. But it feels like a college atmosphere. And you watch college football, you know how energetic that these coaches, these players, and the rest of the staffs, how they play toward every single game. That's what it feels like with the Jets. And Robert Saleh, defensive-minded coach, we've all seen how that they work, but I think with him, it's different. He's a likable guy in the locker room. He's also somebody that is very hyped, can put his boot down in several situations, but people love him. And I think this works for the Jets. I don't know really with as far as Zach Wilson goes, but my God, the last 2 drafts they've aced. When I look at the New York Giants, okay, one of the hardest things is that in the last 10 seasons, they had one winning season. One. And it was hard to really recover from the times that they ended up winning the Super Bowl, and then the time in the Tom Coughlin era, and then Eli Manning. Like, I know there's a lot of loyalty, especially when it comes to New York sports, but they needed something new to look forward to. Now, I'll be honest. I don't know, truthfully, if Daniel Jones is the guy, but Brian Daboll has been utilizing every part of what he can do right. And the rest of the offense is thriving. This is probably the best version of Saquon Barkley that we've honestly have seen since he came out of college in Penn State. Like, this is what we've been looking forward to. Now, I know with the departure of Kadarius Toney, this did not work out in the offensive schematics, but that's okay. That's okay. I think honestly that if you're New York, I mean, with the Kenny Golladay situation, I don't know exactly how that they'll work that out. But if I'm the Giants, I would be utilizing, even with Brian Daboll's offensive mindset, I'd be going and getting myself weapons. And at the fact that the offense is working at its absolute best and they're situationally playing well. Because I could tell you, Kayvon Thibodeau and another one of their pass rushers, this has been looking really, really good. I think he's become a hit. People were very skeptical of him coming out of college in Oregon, but this works. So there are a lot of moving pieces. And this is something that for New York fans to look forward to, I mean, I can see that. New York fans are happy about all of this. And they should be. This is exactly the juice and the heartbeat that New York fans deserved. Because one winning season in 10 seasons, and they've been having flip-flops between Pat Shurmur and Ben McAdoo and Joe Judge. Like, good God. And finally, to get to the point of Brian Daboll, an offensive-minded coach who understands how to set the playbooks right, how the offense could possibly work. And all these pieces, Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, and all the rest of the offense. I mean, this works. We didn't predict like the Giants to be 6-1. We never predicted this at all. I thought for sure, because usually for first-year coaches, it would be a little bit rough. It'd be a little bit challenging. But I think Brian Daboll has absolutely excelled in several different places. And this is exactly the head coach that the Giants fans have been looking forward to. And I am all in on it. I don't know if Daniel Jones is the guy. Maybe they might end up getting a different quarterback down the road. But in this moment right now, I think this works. And honestly, out of all the games, and we have prime predictions later on the bottom half of the hour, the Giants and the Seahawks, that's probably going to be my game of the week. We did not predict this. We didn't predict it from both sides between the Giants and the Seahawks. And that's becoming my game of the week because both teams, Geno Smith is killing it in Seattle and proving, hey, we didn't really need Russell Wilson. We've got the kind of culture and we've got the kind of vibe here in Seattle that we are still maintaining. And that's everything from Pete Carroll to the entire organization. And it seems to be working. But for how long, I don't know. But I think that'll be an interesting game this week. So with that being said, our special guest that is coming on here, you can listen to her on 3rd and 3 podcast. The lovely Nikki Gist joining me here via the Global Satellite Network presented by StreamYard. Okay,
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. I'm good, Jake. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So Nikki, we did not predict this as a whole for football fans like myself, but I love this. And as I've said, I visited New York 6 times in my life. I do love the culture, the atmosphere. Do I see myself living into it? It's probably tough, but however, this is kind of the heartbeat that New York fans have been waiting for. The Yankees and Mets were winning. I know the postseason was rough. And then the Rangers last year made it into the Eastern Conference Finals. So something is happening right. And especially now with the Jets and the Giants in winning records. from what you've seen from the Giants, what really stood out to you this year that out of all the seasons that the Giants have gone through, what makes this year special?
Yeah. So nobody predicted this except I did. In the summer, I said that the Giants would win at least 9 games, and everybody called me crazy. I said the NFC East is going to turn it around this year and become one of the better leagues or better divisions in the league. And I so far was right about that. So I covered training camp for Jersey Sporting News. So I was at camp all summer with the team watching the Giants. And the first thing that I noticed was that Brian Daboll's different, right? Like I noticed the culture change immediately. As soon as you walk in that building, it was a different feel. And I just thought, this is the guy. This is the dude. He's going to turn it around. And everybody has bought in. All the players have bought in. So, I feel like sometimes people think you can just throw a coach on a team and hope for the best. And you look at the Giants the past 8, 9, 10 years, it hasn't really worked out, right? We've gone through
Mhm.
3 different coaches in 4 years, a lot of turnover. And that's why I feel like you can't fully evaluate Daniel Jones, right? I mean, it's a new offense for
Mhm.
every year that he's been here. So I just knew right away Brian Dable's different. This culture is different. And this is going to be a turnaround year for them.
Yeah, and you got to think he's coming off of from a great quarterback in Josh Allen to where
Right.
he's now dealing with a lot of the different mechanics of Daniel Jones. Now, I'll be honest, there are some limitations to Daniel Jones's game
Hmm.
that like New York fans, they either love it or sometimes it kind of drives them nuts. But if they're working with what they've got right now, they've looked like they're a perfect situational team. Like they're not afraid of whether they're trailing or they're keeping a lead, but whatever works, they're going to do whatever it takes to win those games by the time clock's out. Um So, with that being said, I mean, we're seeing Saquon Barkley, and I've looked at this. I'm like, this is the healthiest that he's ever been. Is
Hmm.
this maybe the movement that Brian Daboll has put together with this offense that's now allowing guys like Saquon to finally stay healthy on the field and get the best out of his production?
Yeah. And, for Saquon, he had told us, a lot. Every time he went to the podium, he was frustrated. Right. And we heard him on his, that podcast, right. He did that guest spot and he was just like, man, F the noise, this, that. But he did clarify that he was not upset with the media. He was not upset, at the fans. He was upset with himself. Right. He's frustrated. He's trying to rehab. He's trying to get back. And man, I tell you, when I saw him take the field, I was like, this dude is back. Right. The explosiveness is back. The quickness is back. That lateral run was there, but hey, for the first time in a long time, this offensive line was opening up holes for him. So, yes, it was a combination of what Brian Daboll's putting into place, Saquon getting himself in a really healthy spot. He said mentally he wasn't in a great spot, but this year, this is the best that he's ever felt.
Yeah, I couldn't have agreed more. And the fact that watching him at the very beginning from Penn State, I knew for a fact that he was going to be an elite runner. I mean, with the workouts that he does, is just absolutely insane. And
Oh, they're
in
crazy.
yeah, but it does speak a lot of keeping yourself healthy and keeping
Hmm.
yourself to a consistent degree to where you are being productive up on the field. And I know with the last 3 head coaches, they
Yeah.
probably just didn't end up utilizing it the right way possible. And that's where it was driving Giants fans nuts. And I can get that. And my big thing is because, like I mentioned before, out of the 10 seasons the Giants have been playing, they've only had one winning season. So it's like, does this kind of look like that the ownership, the actual organization, they evaluated the previous 10 seasons? And what was kind of the thought process? I mean, they had to have gone on and said, this is embarrassing. We're a big city. We cannot allow this to happen, especially with our fan bases and how New York is. Listen, New York, they're enthusiastic, but they're also somebody that they can rip into you when they don't see the production's going right and they don't see the results. So could this be like this organization? They spotted it and they said, we need a change. What did you think of that?
Yeah, this is a rough area, I'll tell you. Listen, we're not as rough as Philly, right? I mean, they come out and go 3 and out. They're like throwing stuff on the field already. But we had years of losing and you get tired of it, right?
Mhm.
And John Mara finally came out and said, we did not help Daniel Jones, right? We have not addressed the offensive line. We have not given him any tools to succeed.
Mhm.
Without revealing any sources or too much inside information, I do know there was a little bit of an internal struggle with ownership, but they eventually came to, the agreement that, yeah, we need to do something here. The fans aren't going to take it anymore. And honestly, like, then what am I buying season tickets for? What am I even
Mhm.
spending all this money to go to a game for? Right? It's about $1,000. I'm sitting in the turnpike in traffic. Like, it's just. And listen, it's not a great stadium. I don't know if you ever been to MetLife. I
Oh,
know it
I've
was
heard some things about
redone.
MetLife.
It's pretty bad. So the ask from the fans with a horrible product on the field, it wasn't gonna fly anymore.
Mhm.
He did finally acknowledge, hey, we have to put some pieces in place. So I give him credit for finally doing that, because for a long time they ignored that offensive line. And if you don't have an offensive line, I don't know what you think you're gonna do. So
Right. No, absolutely. Nikki Gist from the 33 podcast joining me here on the show. So let's talk about the rookies. I mean,
yeah,
Kayvon Thibodeau, like I knew he was gonna be something coming out of Oregon, but I mean, you gotta think, it's kind of funny. I watched Justin Herbert. I personally am a Charger fan, and I
mhm,
know watching from a college standpoint from out in Oregon, I mean, you kind of get all these like these small town types of things. Then when you go into a big city like New York or like Los Angeles, I mean, the press is all there in your face.
yeah.
And there's high expectations from the fan base. What have you seen from Kayvon Thibodeau this year that you knew that this was exactly the star pass rusher that the Giants needed to put pressure against opposing offenses?
Yeah, you know what? For me, it was more of the praise that his coaches would give him, how fast he was learning and how fast
Mhm.
he was getting ingrained into the game plan. I know people gave him a hard time, and unfortunately, he got hurt, right? So he missed a couple weeks. He was adamant, hey, I'm going to be back. He is a really hard worker. I know they
Mhm.
all are. I mean, but then you look at like Kyler Murray, he doesn't study. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I have to give Cave on that. I mean, he kind of came in, embraced everything. Unfortunately, it really sucked to start the season hurt. And then, his first game back, he came out and said, listen, everybody just kind of calm down. We've all been hurt. We haven't really gelled yet. And now you're seeing everybody gel, right? He's
Mhm.
definitely one of the leaders on that team. So again, I kept saying to everybody, relax. He's going to be fine. This kid is a beast. He's going to be fine. And I think he's just going to keep maturing, week after week after week, little things. But for him, again, he really embraced it. He embraced the media and just kind of everybody chill out, give us a chance to gel and all get together on the field healthy, because that hadn't happened until like week 4 or 5.
And you got to think they do have a really good mixture of some young players that are up and coming that they're
Yeah.
starting to really gel. There's a good mixture of veterans. I mean, Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, and plus two. I was kind of happy of the fact that Landon Collins came back, because first of all,
Yeah.
why even leave at that first, like the first chance you get? Because I knew productively in that secondary he was going to be an issue for the offense. And
Yeah.
that was where he puts a lot of that pressure on. So it's great to see him back in the New York Blues again. Um, but here's what's also interesting as well. So Kadarius Toney's gone in
Okay.
Kansas City. And I mean, I point this out. I think Kansas City really did find the replacement for Tyreek Hill. He may not be like him,
Mhm.
but because of the speed and because of just the hands he has, it's unfortunate they couldn't work this out in New York. Um, and I look at the Kenny Galladay situation right now too. There's not a whole lot that they're getting the production. So after seeing right now where the Giants at 6-1, could it be possible that the Giants may be in the draft or possibly in free agency, that they may work to get themselves more weapons, whether or not, if Daniel Jones still is the quarterback under center, could they bolster up a lot of those weapons?
Yeah, and I think you have to, right? It's unfortunate with Kadarius Toney. I wish I knew how explosive and great he was on the field. We don't know, right? I mean,
Mhm.
this dude's had like bad hamstrings since the jump, and I guarantee you they'll be fine in Kansas City, right? I fully expect
Oh,
him to
yeah.
go over there and just have like a career rest of the year. Kenny Galladay, that is a sore spot for a lot of Giants fans. I personally requested interviews with him several times, always got denied. He came to the podium one time and he proceeded to tell us that needed to work on his 50-50 ball. He said that New York Giants fans did not see the real Kenny Galladay. Just a bad signing all around. We joke he's a $72 million man, but I mean, he barely participated in any team drills. He would do a little bit of individual things. And same with Tony. So it's unfortunate. I'm super excited for Wan'Dale Robinson. I think this kid is going to be a tremendous talent. So it's so great to see him get on the field. But I think, if you're the Giants, listen, this is an area of concern. You have to get this wide receiver position solidified. I mean, look at Richie James. I honestly didn't think this kid would make the team because he couldn't catch anything. I mean, he still can't, but so Daniel Jones is out there doing a lot. There's weeks where it's just Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley and, Slay's catching a big play once in a while. So you've got to address the wide receiver situation. Absolutely. I do hear that maybe they might be in the run for Brandon Cooks. I'm not sure. He's 18 million guaranteed. So that's a lot. Looks like the Rams, the Giants, and possibly the Vikings might make a run at him. So we'll see.
You know what? I kind of envision that if Brandon Cooks, a veteran guy that, listen, we know with where Houston is, they're a rebuilding team. We know it's unfortunate with their situation, but they're trying to ace the draft as best as possible. Yeah. But if I see Brandon Cooks in New York, I think that would be perfect because then that allows guys like Wan'Dale Robinson to even thrive. And then at the same time, others would follow him as well, even Darius Slayton. And so I kind of like that because that then recovers from the Kadarius Toney thing. And then wherever you decide with, Kenny Galladay in the end, whether it's getting rid of just that contract and selling him off to a different team, which I honestly think teams that could really get the best of his production, because I don't want to say this, but anytime you get a player from Detroit, it almost feels like, is it going to click or does this kind of feel like damaged goods? Because we know with how Detroit is, it just does not look the same.
No.
But yeah, so the energy of New York, I mean, I've seen it before firsthand. Like my first ever New York game, I was 6 years old and I went and saw the Yankees play the A's. And there was nothing like it where I watched Jim Abbott, a left-handed pitcher, just do his stuff. This has got to feel great for New York all the way around. The teams are winning. We know the postseason will come at some point. But as far as the Giants and the Jets are concerned, maybe touching a little bit up on the Jets side of things, I don't know if Zach Wilson is the guy. There's still a lot more evaluations. But as far as it goes for both these coaches, I mean, this has to feel great for New York all around. And I'm sure you probably hear the heckles of the Jets fans at times.
Yeah.
But does it feel like now New York's juice has finally came back now in this town? Like, because listen, if they ain't winning, here's what's terrible. They'll rip about their teams, honestly. And we know being down in down in Manhattan, especially when you got JP Morgan, all that, everybody's all hating on the dogs down there.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you got to have something to look forward to. So does this really, really do feel great for New York fans?
It does feel great. It really does. And not just coming as a Giants fan. Listen, I need my Knicks to, let's get it together a little bit here. And that would be fantastic.
That will only happen. And honestly, unless James Dolan, for God's sake, sell the team, please.
I agree. I mean, he has got to be the worst in all of sports. He's got to be the worst owner. I can't stand this guy. No one can, but that's for another show. But in terms of Jets, Giants, listen, I think a lot of people, if you look back to preseason, would you have said that these teams would have been rocking? Would you have said that Geno Smith and Daniel Jones are balling out and this is the game of the week? I agree with you there. It's not just because I'm being a homer. God knows I've been super critical of the Giants for a very long time.
Oh, sure.
But the Jets fans, listen, I don't like everybody coming out of the woodwork now. You know that, right? Like all of a sudden we have these fans that Where were you the past 10 years? Where were you through the suffering? Then you can
Mm-hmm.
enjoy it. But Jets fans do that a lot. They all of a sudden they pop up out of nowhere. But it does feel good. It feels like finally we have something to look forward to. Hey, you know what? Every year the season's been over before Halloween. So it's like, wow, we have a shot. That's all you can ask, right? For every year. Just
Mm-hmm.
put us in position to give us a shot. And for both teams we're there. I don't know if Zach Wilson's the guy, but you know what? He got me like 35 fantasy points last week. So I'm cool with it for now.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
like I said, this is a great thing for New York, especially a big time city. I mean, you
Yeah.
wouldn't see this in Los Angeles and you would not see this in Vegas, but in New York, of all places, you either are succeeding or you're getting a lot of the rip from media. But
You get
yeah,
out.
yeah, exactly. But real quick before letting you go,
Yeah.
so apparently the NFC East does not feel like the least anymore.
Yes.
So the Eagles, they're obviously their formula is working. The Giants with Brian Daboll, they're situationally great.
Mhm.
And then you have the Cowboys who honestly like they're just working with whatever they have, whether it's Cooper Rush or Dak Prescott. But I'm real about the Cowboys, but I do love how their defense has worked. And then look, Washington is Washington, but at the same time, with as tough as this division is getting, I know we're in week 8, but is that a possibility that the Giants slowly creeping in could get themselves into the playoff picture?
Absolutely. I think at some point we have to look at the Giants and say, hey, they're a credible team here. I understand the jokes are the worst for when we were 4-1, 5-1, but at what point you beat Green Bay, you beat the Ravens. I mean, you don't beat back-to-back MVPs and then say, oh, this team just got lucky. Sure, do penalties go your way? We all understand football like that, but there's something to be said about having a coach to coach a team up, and they're playing great situational football, not turning the ball over. They're not making mistakes, and they're capitalizing off mistakes of the other team. So I think, yeah, you have to give the Giants a chance to say they could make the postseason. Could the East send all three? I think that's a possibility. Who else in the
Mhm.
NFC is really I don't know. I mean, it's
Oh,
not like Green
that
Bay's
conference is wide open.
it really is. It's not like Green Bay's a juggernaut. I mean, I think Minnesota's want to talk about a fake 5-1 team, whatever they are. I mean, I don't know that, they're really legit. So I think you have to consider the NFC East as legit contenders. And maybe, hey, don't count out the Commanders. It seems like they got something with T. Henny over there. It's like he takes over and kind of all of a sudden, their juices start flowing. So it's
Mhm.
definitely a division to watch going forward.
Absolutely. And it's funny when you made the point about the Jets because honestly, my fiance would say the same thing. And she's born and raised in Colorado. And when the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup,
Uh huh.
here came her timeline feed on Facebook. And
Uh
it's like,
huh.
where were you guys from the last 20 years when Peter Forsberg and Joe Sakic won the Stanley Cup? Now you all rise up from the grave because Nathan McKinnon's
Yes.
great. It's like, yeah, at sometimes fan bases, you got to love them because sometimes it's like they're either very hyped up or at
Yeah.
times they can be ruthless, but you got to love it because it's all energy, it's all emotions.
Yeah.
But this is a great look for New York and I'm very happy of it. Nikki, this was great. I know we've
Yes.
been trying to schedule all this out and finally we make it
For a
happen.
while.
Yes. So, with all of our fans here watching
Uh-huh.
and listening, where can people find you to get more of your content?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on all social media platforms. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. It's at Nikki Nick 9384. So a couple of my podcasts. So Tuesday night, 8 o'clock is New York Giants Rush. If you want more Giants content, and we really kind of go into depth there, that's the place to be. It's the Giants guys on YouTube. Wednesday nights is Third and Three podcast at 7 o'clock, and we stream live to Facebook. And then in about an hour, 11:30 Eastern time, is Channel Side Bets on YouTube. So that's your daily fantasy picking against the spread. And I got to change it to a Halloween costume because I lost. So if you're looking for a show to watch at 11:30 and you want to see what wig I have to wear, hop on over there.
Well, there you go. Make sure you guys do tune in. And yeah, I feel you on that, especially when it comes to those bets.
Oh,
It's oh yeah, there's none like it. Yeah, I know that feeling for sure. But thank you so much,
thank you.
Nikki, and I appreciate it. I would love to do this again.
Absolutely.
Have an amazing weekend. And honestly, like I said, I'm watching that game today. I think that's the game of the week. So
It is.
hopefully we'll see those Giants get a gigantic win today.
I hope so. Thanks, Jake. I appreciate it.
You betcha. Well, there you go. Nikki Gist there from the 3rd and 3 podcast. Absolutely amazing. And listen, I do want to say this. I do think for a lot of the women in the sports industry, they are making a killing. And I'm all for it. I love it. But she does point out a lot of really good things. The fact that Brian Daboll out of the gate, he was changing a lot of what the identity of what the team does. And I think this is great. And the fact that, yes, Kadarius Toney, a tough loss for them, but they're opening up for other options. And I do think this would be a good thing. And I'm glad that she even mentioned about the Brandon Cooks thing, because I could literally see that if Brandon Cooks came to New York, Wandale Robinson and Darius Slayton and a lot of these receivers, I mean, however they handle Kenny Golladay is going to be one thing. But I do like envisioning that. I think with having that veteran receiver, all the rest of them, the youngsters, they will be able to get on the right page. And I think that would be the best thing for them. And because, again, Brian Daboll, he is an absolute hit of a head coach, probably a head coach of the year. Daniel Jones, he has limitations, but as long as Daboll is able to coach him right and get him in those scenarios and situations and thrive in them, it'll be better. But it's like they're all utilizing exactly what they've got. But I do want to talk about the Kadarius Toney situation. So the Kansas City Chiefs, they only gave away a couple draft picks just to get Kadarius Toney. And here's why: when you look at a lot of offenses in the NFL, this is exactly what this league has turned into, and they've transformed. Kansas City, for as great as they are, I mean, you see it. And you know why that, like, when it comes to the offenses and how the league is shaped, I mean, I love it. And the fact of the matter is that Kadarius Toney, they found the replacement for Tyreek Hill. Really. Like, I really do think that Kadarius Toney plugging in, you have to think of how the offense really flows. The fact that he is able to come in, and we know, and even Nikki pointed that out, was the fact of the hamstring injuries and all the rest of it. But when you're around someone like Patrick Mahomes, you know that the offense is going to be thriving, and it's great. And the fact of the matter is, Kadarius Toney's coming into a wide receiver room where Juju Smith-Schuster, he doesn't even have to do a whole lot except for be a really good route runner. That opens up a lot of the playbook. And that in the end, you have Marquez Valdes-Scantling and several other young wide receivers like Sky Moore. And he'll plug in. And this is how I kind of see this. Because Andy Reid, as a great play designer, he's going to utilize Toney the similar way that Tyreek Hill was utilized. Now, he may not be to the extent of Tyreek Hill, but that's okay. They have the speed, they have the hands, and this is going to be something that is going to unlock the offense. I mean, did we all end up seeing this coming? The fact of the matter is, and I would have done the same, trade Tyreek Hill for 5 draft picks. Like, that's something that if you're Brett Veach, that's the smartest thing you can do. I know that when it comes to Tyreek Hill, and you're seeing a lot of the stuff that's happening in Miami, and now Miami being an offensive team with Mike McDaniel and how they're utilizing Tua, like, it's a really good offense. And I do think Mike McDaniel works for Miami. But at the same time, you hear a lot of the heckles from Tyreek Hill, and especially after making his money's worth and being traded, you could just see Kansas City, they have no problems. They'll get 5 draft picks. They'll utilize all 5 of those draft picks. And then they go and get themselves Kadarius Toney in the end, another speedster who I do think will be a problem for opposing defenses. Like, this just tells you a lot about the greatness that Kansas City has. And and again, I'm not trying to praise them too hard, but smart offenses that see this is why the league has literally shifted this way. I look at a lot of different defensive coaches. And first of all, like, I could give you for examples, like Mike Tomlin, defensive guy. Pittsburgh at times, they've aced the draft when it comes to their wide receivers. Now, again, this is only the time that Kenny Pickett really has. I can't criticize. I mean, he's going up against Philly, which that's tough. You're not going to succeed a whole lot, especially with an offensive defense that's really, really good. And Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen, they are making it work. But I give that pass to Kenny Pickett. I do. Because I do think Pittsburgh, they have to end up drafting offensive line. They got to end up addressing that. And for a defensive coach like Mike Tomlin, I know because of the loyalty, and I know because of the fact that he's never had a losing season in his career as head coach, but still, you got to be able to be on the movement. What's interesting, Chicago, you have a defensive coach in Matt Eberflus, but I'll be honest, between him and Getsy, the offensive coordinator, this kind of looks interesting. But Chicago and the McCaskies, they need to figure this out. They have over $250 million in the caps to spend. If you are not spending that on wide receivers, offensive lines, and possibly one more tight end, then I don't know exactly what else to think about Chicago, but I know that they are big on defense. And you got to shift it. You got to get rid of this 1950s television set that they continuously glue their eyes on. And then you look at the Chargers, where the scenario between Brandon Staley and Joe Lombardi, it's not looking great. There's so much pullback on Justin Herbert, who we all know has a lot of potential. He's got the arm. He's somebody that's a great pocket passer. And by the way, he's tough as nails. I mean, a 6'6", 235-pounder. And the kid, he's playing on hurt ribs. The offensive line had started to kind of get shaky. And then in the end, wide receivers, they're hurt. They're not trading up for any of those, not even picking any of those up. This is going to smell bad news for them. I mean, they're in the bye week this week. But at the same time, you have a defense that doesn't even look like a top 10 defense. J.C. Jackson's out for the season now. So this is why that when you have that, you got to have the right personnels. But mostly because of the way the league is shifting, you've got to be great on offense. That's why with Kansas City, they care so much about offenses and the way that Patrick Mahomes utilizes everybody. He does not only just use Travis Kelce. He's utilizing every single piece. And with Kadarius Toney in there, I think Kansas City's resurgence is going to start to go up. Like, we all know how great the organization is because of the way that they're shifting in the now. Like, this is the thing. Could you imagine this in our lifetimes, how much technology has literally shifted after all these generations? Like, first of all, when the first computer was made, it was meant for us to get out of reality. And yet at the same time, it's utilizing networks. It's also utilizing a lot of marketing, and it's utilizing stuff like yours truly doing this. So that is why I look at Kansas City and I look at their blueprints, and I just look and I'm going, this is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So I like it, and I'm all in for it. All right. We're going to be taking a break here, but when we do come back, things do not seem to be looking great at all in Green Bay. Not at all. And so right now you're seeing everything on Aaron Rodgers. And I, for one, would just say we knew for a fact that this was not going to be the great thing for Green Bay to go through. And this is where everything is unfolding. So, but I'll be talking about that. I will also be unloading a lot of the important stuff as well, which people know what I'm going to talk about. And then we have NFL Prime prediction. So you guys do not want to end up missing that here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. All right, we are back here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, folks. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm loving these prime predictions. So what I'm going to end up doing, because of the fact of, I know this does kind of feel a little weird for you guys. I really, really do apologize. Because usually you guys have all seen the craft of my work. You guys all have. There's a lot of the explanations behind all of that. I will not get too deep up into detail, but I do want to start with these prime predictions before we end up talking a lot about all the rest of this stuff out of respect. And so I'm want to know right now, after picking the Ravens +1, I knew that Tampa Bay, they did not look like themselves at all. And so sure enough, the Ravens, they come away with the win. I like it. And so we're going to start with the prime predictions week 8. And here we go. Let's turn it up. It's Jake's prime predictions. Broncos at Jaguars. I'm going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars for several reasons. First of all, I know it's a London game, but for God's sakes, this Broncos offense is atrocious. I cannot believe with the way that, Nathaniel Hackett, and here's what we've also said too, that if the Broncos lost to the Jaguars this week, Nathaniel Hackett may be out. And we're waiting and seeing. We know it's early morning, but here's the thing. Doug Peterson knows that he is getting the best out of Trevor Lawrence and, of course, working the offense. It was not going to be pretty, but they are working it to the best extent possible. And Travis Etienne looks really, really good. Now, no James Robinson. We know that for a fact. Going to the Jets, it's going to up their run game. But I do love with what Jacksonville has, and especially recovering from a few different places, offensive schematics and all the rest of it, they're going to correct themselves up. I do look at Jacksonville, and here's the funny thing. In London, they love it there. So you all know that the Jaguars live and breathe for London. So I'm going to take the win, 24-20 -2.5. I will take that. Panthers at Falcons. I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons here. Now, mostly I do go against the spread, but this week it's a little different. So I've got Atlanta at home, and Carolina is just an absolute mess. They're trading everybody away, and P.J. Walker is the starting quarterback, and he probably will look to be that way for the remainder of the year. They've already fired their head coach. Christian McCaffrey's with San Francisco. So I'm looking at that you got DJ Moore and you got a couple of other pieces, so you might as well accumulate draft picks and you might as well get what you can, because Carolina, they're going nowhere. It's a rebuilding organization. We clearly know this, but as far as with what we look at with Atlanta, by the way, Marcus Mariota, let's give him credit this year. He has literally kept this Falcons team to afloat. They did not look as terrible as we thought for the start of the season, but Arthur Smith has really been working a lot of his mechanics. And Marcus Mariota working with the rest of the offense, even with Drake London, the rookie. This has worked out really good. I'm going to take the Falcons to win here at home, and that'll be a big win, 27-20 over the Panthers. Bears at Cowboys. I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys. I know, Malguli, this is probably going to be really salty for you, but here's what my explanation of this is. First of all, that Dallas defense with Micah Parsons and with the way that the offensive line is working for Chicago, it's pretty difficult. But Dallas's defense has really been getting to the quarterback. Now, I know it was not a pretty showing from Dak Prescott. Everybody's like, put Cooper Rush back in, put him back. Listen, this is Dak's team. This is hard to sit a $40 million quarterback, but this is what you've written. This is what Jerry Jones has put on the contract. So it's tough. But Dallas, I think with the defense and with the way that the Bears offense has been flowing, I know it's very exceptional, but they need more pieces. And that's where I think Dallas is going to really take advantage of it. So I have Dallas here in this game. It'll be interesting for the Bears. But you know what? I would not be surprised if the Bears come up with something clever. 30-20, Dallas wins at home. Dolphins at Lions. I'm going to take the Miami Dolphins here on the road against Detroit. Listen, everybody has all been saying, why not take Detroit? Jared Goff's been great at home. I understand that, and I do know that he's getting a lot of his weapons back. But here's the problem. The defense, regardless if the offense is scoring, the defense is coughing up points. And this is where you cannot do it, especially with an offense like Miami. Mike McDaniel, he's very confident right now with the way that things are running for Tua. And right now, Miami's offense, it looks great. Now, I know the defensive side of things, so I could see this game potentially go into a shootout. But I do think Miami, with the way that they are situationally, because Detroit, look, I like Dan Campbell as a person, but as a head coach, you got to get real. You got to get real in certain places, and especially when it comes to the way this defense has been shaped. It's not looking great. I love the offense, and I do think Jared Goff really does work with it at home. I'll take Miami in the points, -3.5 on a 27-23 win on the road. Cardinals at Vikings. I'm going to take the Vikings here, -3.5. First of all, Kyler Murray has not looked like his best. We know that after getting DeAndre Hopkins back and hoping that the offense would literally click, you can't win without DeAndre Hopkins. This is what has been the problem for Arizona. Now, here's the other issue. Minnesota, with a new offensive coach, they're opening up certain plays on the playbook. I do not think Arizona has exactly the firepower on defense to contain guys like Justin Jefferson, like Adam Thielen, and even Dalvin Cook. They don't have that. And it's unfortunate with a Cardinals organization where they're trying to make it work. But to be honest, this might be the roughest going for the Cardinals organization and for Cliff Kingsbury. Even after getting that extension, this is hard to really, recover from. But Minnesota's offense looks really good. Kevin O'Connell is doing great things right now with what the Vikings have, even with a Kirk Cousins who is not great in prime time. So I'll take Minnesota at home. They're going to be skulking everywhere around against the Cardinals. So I'm taking them at home. 23-28 is my final score, -3.5. Raiders at Saints. Look, I understand that the Saints defense is really, really good. I do. But there's been a couple of key pieces. Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry both are out. And I'm taking the Raiders on the road. For the fact that it's got to be -1. Let me be honest with you. I know right now the defense doesn't look great for the Raiders, but they are going to be catching a break. Andy Dalton is starting at quarterback. They do have Jameis Winston available on the bench, but are not starting him. And listen, I don't know why people are honestly, buying in to the, beige water pistol at this point. But look, we know with what Andy Dalton does and what he doesn't do right. And I think for the Raiders, this is a great thing for them to catch a break. I think they'll be fine. The defense, I'm not saying that they're going to feast all over New Orleans, but that is a tough showing against a Saints team that I do look at Chris Olave, and I do think he's going to end up producing any way that he can. But this is a great break for the Raiders. I'm going to give them a win 27-20 on the road in New Orleans. Tough place to play, but the Raiders are catching a break this week. Patriots at Jets. I know a lot of people want to see the Patriots get upset by the Jets, but I don't think that's going to happen. Not when you have Bill Belichick, who has a great record against young quarterbacks, especially Zach Wilson. So I'm going to take New England here and the points at 2.5. Look, I know with the fact that he unravels young quarterbacks, but here's the other thing you got to kind of look at too. Situational play. And the record right now between New England and the Jets, they feasted on the Jets several times And so even with a grand record, situational play is what Bill Belichick does right. Now, the Mac Jones and the Bailey Zappi kind of conversation, I don't see this being a controversy, but I know that when it comes to New England, they find out their numbers against the AFC East opponents. Now, they may not have found that with Buffalo and Miami, but with the Jets, close enough. That's what I'll be taking from there. I do love the Jets, and I do love what they've done. But especially with a record against New England, I'm not taking that chance. I'm going to take New England on the road. -2.5, 27-23 is my final score. Steelers at Eagles. I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles. First of all, they've done a lot of things great. And here's the other part. They've also added a veteran pass rusher in Robert Quinn. Now, he hasn't had a great start to his season this year, but he is a great pass rusher. And you have to think, he's plugging himself into a loaded defense with Kaiser White, Hassan Reddick, Jordan Davis, and Fletcher Cox, all of which are really, really good at pass rushing. And I do feel like the Eagles will feast on Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh's offensive line, let's be honest, this is why I'm giving Kenny Pickett a pass, because this line is atrocious. And it's not even allowing guys like Najee Harris to really open for holes for him to run. And against Philadelphia, who is just clicking and clicking and clicking on every level possible, that's where it's going to be a really bad break for Pittsburgh. So I'm going to take the Eagles 10.5. I know it's a lot of points, but after they got Robert Quinn and they beefed up their pass rush, how can you not? I'm going to take the 10.5, 34-20. Philadelphia feasts at home. Titans at Texans. I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans here. Yeah, I'm feeling confident about this. Listen, Ryan Tannehill is out with an illness. So you know what that means. And as I've said every time when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, you always give them halfway of the year for them to start. So that means we're getting a chance to see Malik Willis, folks. When Willis, the way. Like, honestly, all puns and jokes aside, Tennessee needed some type of juice. And honestly, I do think Malik Willis could potentially be that guy. Now, they are in a division rival matchup between them and the Texans. But I kind of see this game getting a little slow because we all kind of know the limitations with Davis Mills and with how Houston's defense really does pan out. Now, they do have some good pieces, but I do think that on both sides, it's going to be pretty slow. So I'm taking the Titans here to win this one, 24-20. It may be close, but 2.5 points, that's a good cushion. I'm going to take it, bank it. Titans win here, and Malik Willis gets his first win. Commanders at Colts. You couldn't have asked for a great payback game against the Colts. I'm going to take Washington on the road +3 against the Colts. Listen, I know that Carson Wentz is hurt, so we're not going to see him against the Colts, but we are going to see Taylor Heineke. I wanted to put that out there because, first of all, that is the narrative, right? Because Jim Irsay throwing Carson Wentz under the bus, while the Colts, by the way, sat Matt Ryan looking like his Matty Cold self, who doesn't really look exactly like the Matty Ice that we were familiarized with when they went to the Super Bowl. So Sam Ehlinger is starting two different types of quarterbacks, both of them backups. So I think, honestly, like, this is going to be a bad showing for the Colts and the way that this bottom tier wide receiver room, how they've looked. So I think Washington, even with the pieces that they have, for whatever reason, Taylor Heineke and Terry McLaurin, they both got each other's numbers. Like, they're really, really good. So I think Washington pulling away with an upset +3. I like it. 24-21 on the road. Washington upsets the Colts. 49ers at Rams. I'm going to take San Francisco here up in this one because after the last time I saw the showing between the Rams and the Niners in San Francisco, it was embarrassing to end up watching for the Rams. They clearly are missing some offensive line pieces. By the way, last week was the first showing for Christian McCaffrey. After getting some time to learning the playbook and learning a lot of the players and learning a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo, I think this now works for San Francisco. And the problem of it, the Rams, man, they were just not all there. And now they're at home in SoFi Stadium in LA, and you got to be showing up. Because San Francisco, with Kyle Shanahan, it's the most embarrassing thing for Sean McVay. And you know he does not want to get double-dipped against Kyle Shanahan. He will feel absolutely bitter about that. So I'm going to take the Niners here on the road. I think it's going to be too much for the Rams. I think the 49ers, they're starting to get healthier. They're getting expendable. And this, I think, will be a great showing for Christian McCaffrey, and they'll utilize a lot of his strengths. 28-21 on the road in LA. Niners pull away with another win. Giants at Seahawks. I know that this is going to be the game of the week. People don't believe this, but the fact that both these teams have shocked us all has just been amazing. I honestly do think, though, it'll be interesting, but I'm going to take the Giants at +3. But my only hard concern is because you got Daniel Jones and you've got Geno Smith as your quarterbacks. Now, Geno has been playing really, really good, and surprisingly. And I think this really has worked out for the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know how long that this will last, but the Giants play great situational football. Brian Daboll is an absolute hit for the Giants. And as far as with what Seattle does defensively, this is going to be one of those things that you look at Seattle, they're going to play it to the absolute extent, but I do see this being a close game. I don't think the Giants will pull away with a win. It's tough, but with +3 to cover, I'll take that. 23-20, Seattle wins. It's going to be tough all the way around to try to score points, but I think this will be interesting, and Seattle comes away with the win. Packers at Bills. I mean, what else do I really got to say about this? This is going to be one of those bum rush games where Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are going to get their absolute asses handed to. Josh Allen, unbelievable quarterback. The offense has absolutely exploded. And so I think this here is going to be really bad of a showing for Aaron Rodgers because of the fact that he has young wide receivers, and he's going to look at exactly Buffalo's offense and know how deep in wide receiver that they really are, and that's where he's going to feel very bitter, and he's probably going to end up calling shots on the Packers. I know defensively, it's hard to say with where the Packers are right now, and especially against Buffalo there, that's not going to be looking great either. I'm going to sum this up. 11.5 points. That's dangerous, but it's doable for Buffalo because they're coming out swinging with hooks, and these are some powerful ones. So I would not trust Green Bay at all against Buffalo. 38-21 at home. They'll be absolutely feasting just like the Eagles are, but even harder on someone like Aaron Rodgers. Bengals at Browns. I'm going to take Cincinnati. Listen, I know people are kind of booking into Cleveland because of the fact that, first, I love Nick Chubb, and I also do love their defense. But Jacoby Brissett is only going to win you so many games that even in games like this, by the way, Cincinnati, outside of everybody within the league, they're a great second-half defense. They really, really are. And I've been seeing a lot of the potentials. This is why that I think Cincinnati, you cannot count them out as far as playoff picture and potential Super Bowl bubble, because I know Jamar Chase is out for 4 to 6 weeks. But understand this. They've got Tyler Boyd. They got T. Higgins. They got a bunch of pieces, and they're doing really, really good. So I think Cincinnati's found their heartbeat after a slow start into the season, and I'm going to take the Bengals on the road against the Bills or against the Browns, and they'll win it on Monday night, 28-23, because that second half defense, you really could not go wrong with. All right, folks. Well, there you got it. All odds were provided by SuperDraft Pro. And like I said, I think there's a good mixture. A lot of them are favorites. I think this is favorites week. I got the Jags, Falcons, Cowboys, Dolphins, Vikings, Raiders, Patriots, Eagles, Titans. 49ers, Bills, and Bengals. And then my two dogs are the Giants and the Commanders. Like, I think that hard game, though, against the Giants and the Seahawks, it's absolutely tough. And that is my game of the week. Like, without a doubt, that's my game of the week. I do think both organizations, they are just slowly but surely, they have been figuring themselves out. The Giants are just playing great situational football. Like, first of all, it was not a fluke against the Packers or against the Ravens. They played to the absolute extent to where when the time clock was running, the Giants were coming away with it. And I got to give credit and shout out to Nikki Gist as well, who was with us early in the morning and on the show. And she narrowed it. The fact that the defense playing great, the offense is slowly figuring each other out. And, Saquon Barkley finally on a healthy season. Like, how long have we been waiting for that? So I think the Giants, they'll be fine. I think the Giants will definitely be fine. I know that this will be a harder game because of the fact of you've got both offenses who are working themselves to try to get every push possible, especially when you're running the chains, you're moving downfield. It may not be easy because of the fact of you got a defensive coach in Pete Carroll, and as far as with what the Giants got a pretty good defense. Kayvon Thibodeau is looking great, but that's where I think those will be hard nail biters, but that's what you got to love sometimes. When you televise games like that, especially for two shocking teams that we did not even think in the beginning of the season that they would pan out like this. This is great. This is why you got to love the NFL from every point, from every week. When you look at exactly that slate and that lineup, like, that's why I'm like, and then you watch them play on television. It's great. It's really, really great. All right. So first and foremost, I do want to end up unloading a lot of this stuff, and respectfully, I'm not going to get too deep into details, but first and foremost, I just want to tell every single one of my supporters, my listeners, my viewers, subscribers, everyone around who has been building up this fan base and who have supported me since day one. I mean, we started on an Instagram page and it has taken off and it has thrived for a very, very long time. And I appreciate every single one of you only because you, the supporters, you, the subscribers, the viewers, and the listeners, you guys have been the heartbeat that has continuously made the Snake Sports Talk Show breathe and thrive and grow and exceeding a lot of expectations. And for that, I am gratefully and appreciatively thanking every single one of you. Because without it, this would not be possible. And we've reached to, by the way, 506 subscribers. We finally got to 500. Finally, after all this time. And it took a long time coming. And I'm forever grateful for that. But the biggest announcement that I have to make is that on this show, and from where the direction of the show itself is going, sorry. Had to clear my throat up on that one. Sorry, guys. But anyway, with the direction of where the show is going, the show will never stop as long as you see my face and I'm speaking onto the microphone and I've got my headset on. And when the camera's on and it's all systems go, this show will never end. And because all of you have been the heartbeat of this show, and I'm forever grateful for every one of you. But the Snake Sports Talk Show, and it's sad to say, but are no longer in association with the Spotlight Sports Network, respectfully for reasonable terms. But that doesn't mean that there is not that doesn't mean that there's any resentment or any of that. Um, there's always mutual respect for one another. And everybody that has long known me knows exactly how my professionalism and how my deliveries, and especially too, as far as um, situational mindset and all the things above. I am very reasonable when it comes to certain things. But I do this for not only just for my own supports, but also too, I have enjoyed every single moment that I have had in my tenure with Spotlight Sports Network. I have. I have made great and grand relationships with a lot of the people that I have worked with, and I still do keep in contacts with everyone. And I love it because hardworking, innovative minds and just a great working class of people that see the same similar visionary as you do. Um, I've loved and enjoyed every single moment of it. I've learned a lot from it. I've learned a lot when it came to networking. I've learned a lot when it came to building relationships and building partnerships and um, business aspects. And I will continue to move that forward as long as this show continues to run. Um, where am I going? Whenever this show hits, you'll know where I'll be. Um, but I will tell you, I mean, for years and years being a part of that network itself, I'm forever grateful. And there is no hard feelings, there's no animosity, there is no resentments whatsoever um with where the direction of where the network has taken place. And I won't get deep into details, but I respectfully say I appreciate everything that I have left a mark on that network. And with wherever this show goes, you know when I go live and you know exactly with where I will be. Um I know a lot of you, especially when it comes to the fan bases. I appreciate every one of you. I can't begin to tell you how many texts that I literally got in the past week. Like, it was a lot to digest. It seriously was. But out of the respective reasons, it took me a lot of clarity. It also took me a lot of just evaluating every part of my position where I am now and the decision making from that afterward. Um, I just think from after everything that had unfolded, it was long due. It was time. It was just that time to leave. It was that time to go. But I've enjoyed every moment of it. And a lot of people who know me personally, I'm not confrontational, none of that. I'm very reasonable. I'm very open-minded and optimistic. And but it's for the greater good for not just myself, but even for all of the people I've worked around with. So I appreciate everybody, and you all know who you are. When you worked within the network, and we've had like just funny, hilarious, great, motivating times with our times in the network. I appreciate every one of you, and I do wish the absolute best successes for every single one of you because that is exactly what made the network itself thrive. It was not for personal gain. It was not for um trying to make, something at times, even in businesses and even in life, there are certain matters and situations where you have to think far beyond and you got to think much bigger than yourself because that's what businesses do. Sometimes businesses don't work out, but there's reasons behind all of that of why they don't work out. And you'll know that. There's nothing to really explain of. When you see it, you already know. But what makes businesses thrive is catching that moment, readjusting, reevaluating, renovating, and building it into something that is far greater than yourself. And that's what it's meant to be. That was who we were on the network. I considered it honestly as like a university where a lot of people this industry is so massive, and a lot of people who do podcasting. And by the way, every other podcaster who I've collaborated with, or those that I have seen, or those, you may not know exactly how to start a podcast, but you are curious of a lot of it. I do wish a lot of it, best of lucks and the greatest of expectations for every one of you guys, because you guys is what makes the community great. And we all are striving for our own successes wherever the road of life takes us. So with that being said, and wrapping this up, my tenure at Spotlight Sports Network has unfortunately ended. It was about that time. But as long as the fan base continues to grow, and for you, the viewers and listeners and supporters and subscribers, continue to watch and continuously spread the word of the show, when that button hits live, that is where the show goes on. And so I'm forever indebted, and I'm forever grateful for every one of you. And thank you all, as we finally got to 500 subscribers and we are taking off. I want to get to 1,000 subscribers. We all do. It's an absolute new era, Arku. You already know it. So I'm excited for the possibilities. I really am. I'm really excited for what is new. And I know a lot of people hate hearing this, but let's ride. We're all along for the ride. Thank you all so much for being here today on this episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. I appreciate every single one of you guys. As usual, like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell button for all latest notifications on futures and past shows. Comment them. Tell me exactly what you think. I want to hear the voices from you. You can hear me every time we go live for an hour and a half. You heard enough of me, but I want to hear you, all of you, the fans, what your thoughts are, because that is the biggest importance of this show. So thank you for everything that you guys do, and we will see you on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, you guys.
Have you